Tom Bonahawk, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to I Like to Movie, podcast about movies.
That's a good way around it.
Yeah. Right.
My name's Dan Scully.
I somehow turned it into a clumsy portmanteau by just rearranging its own words.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think it totally works.
And we are joined by our good friend. At this point, I think, right, we could say this. Our good friend, Erik Kristopher Myers, director of Butterfly Kisses. Hello, sir. Welcome back to the show.
Hawk Bonatol, gentlemen.
Hawk Bonatol. That sounds like Bonatol's a medicine that you're trying to sell. I'm hawking Bonatol over here.
That's interesting. I was thinking medicine as well, but I was thinking a medicine that's derived from hawk bones.
Ooh.
Like
that's pretty good.
Like the inside of the bone, it's got the what's that shit called?
Marrow?
Marrow, thank you.
No problem.
it's the part of the bone that I always shy away from when grilling meats. But
what do you think it cures? Like, what are you selling it as a remedy for? Like high arches?
I'm thinking like
I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't even say what it's for, but I feel like I could very easily get Charlie Sheen to start buying it from me, and then from there the business just goes.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm taking Hawk Bonatol. And it's like, well, what does it cure? It's like, well, what do you have? Yeah. Everything. Cool. Great.
Well, if it's Charlie Sheen, then it has to be some kind of like erectile related pill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yes.
What did he claim he had? Like, it was like, was it tiger blood? That sounds right.
Tiger blood, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When he did that wild interview where he had tiger blood.
Yeah.
Man, talk about American heroes.
Yeah.
But that's a man who lived a life.
Well, we're joined by Erik because we wanted to talk about some, what did we decide on? Underrated sequels? Is that how we decided to qualify this?
Yeah, I think we're defending sequels.
Unfairly maligned sequels.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, like that. But before we get to that business, I just wanted to let people know why we're here, what we're doing. I think, Dan, you have some show and tell. I have some show and tell. We have some interesting stories to tell.
I have so much show and tell. So I'll tell you this one real quick, just because there's not a lot of material to it. My parents had like a leak in their house that got stuff in the attic wet, and I was like, all right, so this is my chance to pop in, just grab all of these old boxes of like books and magazines, take what I want and trash the rest. And so back in the day, every time a Batman movie came out, I always went and got the comic book adaptation. Now this one's seen better days, The Batman Returns, because there's the cover, there's the actual book itself. But I don't have the original Batman. Unfortunately, that came out when I was 5, so I was not the comic book reader quite yet. But I do have Batman Returns, and then lo and behold, I also have Batman Forever, which has an ad on the back for Batman Forever. Oh, yeah, that's true, too. Batman Returns also has an ad on the back for Batman Returns.
Of course.
And then I also have Batman and Robin, which on the back has an ad for Batman and Robin. And I remember... it was funny. I remember getting... This is actually my 3rd copy of this, because the first one I bought at the mall, and then I was playing with the dog at the pet store, and it peed all over me, and so it ruined it. And so then I went and got it a second time, and I loved it because not only did I love Batman, but I just think Poison Ivy is a forever babe. So when I was a young man, like this was like a little bit that for me. But then I lost it, so I bought a 3rd copy. So that is my show and tell of comic books. But also, my significant other went and visited her friend at a bed and breakfast in upstate New York that her friend's mother owns. And she has a barn filled with old stuff that she's trying to get rid of, trying to sell. And so that is how I got myself a free, 100% free 8mm projector.
You son of a bitch.
How cool is this thing?
You son of a bitch. I have an 8mm camera.
Oh, yeah?
So
I think we can scratch each other's backs. Quid pro quo. Quid pro quo.
Is that the name of the movie you're gonna make with it?
Yeah. No, I'm literally reading Silence of the Lambs.
I think we just need to discover some mysterious and hitherto unknown or unseen Bigfoot footage from the 1970s.
I mean, if I can get some cryptids on this bitch, I am in.
Let's talk offline.
Yeah,
we don't want to incriminate ourselves by, discussing too deeply this fraud that we are going to perpetrate on the unsuspecting audience.
What is this fraud word you're using? I don't understand. But yeah, I'm so excited about this. But the problem is I don't have any 8mm films, but I couldn't turn this down. I need to have this in my collection of movie nerd toys. They did find some film reels in the I don't have it. She has to grab it for me. She found some film reels that were, I believe, 16 mil in the barn, and one of them is from an old porno cartoon that Garrett, they showed at Exhumed.
Yeah.
If you seem to remember, there's one where a guy has a giant dick that he puts through the fence, and like a cow bites it or something like that. That thing. Yeah. They found a strip of that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So wouldn't play on this, but there was all this weird stuff up there. So I have some cells from that strip, but I don't have them accessible right yet. But it was a pretty cool thing to have come across. So that's my show and tell.
That's awesome.
That's very, very cool. And I did want to just step back on the first part of your show that you were telling.
Yes.
And say that I have a near mint condition, glossy version of the Batman '89 adaptation. I do not have Batman Returns, Batman Forever, or Batman and Robin. So once again, sir, we are the missing pieces to one another's puzzle.
Well, that sounds to me a lot like fate. We're going to have to combine these things to create something amazing.
We all literally did the same hand motion at the same time.
Yeah, say what you will about Tenet, but that image is going to last forever in the lexicon from Tenet. I've used it as visual shorthand if I'm explaining something and someone's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I go,
well, Dan,
lets them know.
I knew it was what you were bringing, so when you brought that up, I don't think I've shown these before. You might have seen them at the house, Dan, but I got these from my grandfather's basement and moved out. These are really, really old cameras. I don't know. Can you see the lens there?
Yeah.
And it's I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like a whole box that you have to open up. I don't know what it takes film wise. I have no idea. I've got another one here that it seems to be even older. I believe that's the lens up there. I think maybe down here is where it takes in the light and loads the film. These are very old, very, very old cameras that I found in my grandfather's basement.
We've got to bust these open, dude.
I know.
What does it look like? What's it powered by?
I don't know. They have it's got a little crank, a little wheel here that maybe a spin. I don't know.
And is there any writing around the little crank? Because in the event that in the event that someone is listening to this and not seeing this that looks like it would be something to change the film speed. Not necessarily like a clockwork motor that would wind up and then release. But I'm not sure.
And there's a little, I don't know, trigger right here. I can hear this this is shifting I don't know, a lens inside or something.
Interesting.
We're gonna have to do.
We gotta get them open and fix that.
If all else fails, you can do a Vietnam War photographer cosplay with them and just run around a convention doing your thing.
Well, I asked my grandfather if he knew where he got them, and he was like, I don't. And my grandfather was 95 when he just died, so these could be at least that old. It's possible they were even hand-me-downs to him from somebody, because he doesn't even know how he got them, so I don't really know how old they are or exactly what kind of cameras they are, but they I don't know, he just gave it. He was like, you like movies, here are cameras.
Dude, we're gonna have to bust them open and have some fun.
Yeah, I'm really interested in what kind of film that takes and how it operates, because I would think that, given the area you're talking about, that's 16 millimeter film.
Yeah, this is
unless that was a commercial thing.
ANSCO. That's the, I don't know, I guess the brand written on it. And then this one has a dial on the side.
Oh well, Ansco makes a lot of them, but I think I just found your machine there.
Whoa, yeah. I mean, that's got to be it, right?
This is the Ansco Cadet D6. It might not be the exact thing.
This is a B2 Cadet. I think that's what this says. That's what's written on the strap. B2 Cadet.
Yeah. I'm looking at the wiki page for them, and it looks like it was early 20th century, though, or the end of the 19th, actually.
Holy moly! I thought they might be that old. They appear to be old as shit.
Yeah, it looks like 55 millimeter 116 or 118 film, 120 film. This is very, very interesting. I need to read up on this and find out what these cameras were for, because I mean, does that look like it's got a lens mount where you could put another lens on it, or is it just that built-in box lens?
I think it's just the built-in one. And actually, I don't know if you can see this, Eric, but there's like a trigger here on the side, and as I hit it, there's a mechanism inside that you can see just spins every time I hit it.
So I think that what we're looking at here is a still photograph camera.
I think
this
so,
is definitely not a film camera.
I think so, because it's like opening and closing the shutter every time I flick that.
So I actually have some information here. It says this camera was designed in Germany and produced from 1937 to 1940 by the Ansco Corp, Binghamton, New York. It uses B2 roll film and weighs in at 14.4 ounces without film, blah, blah. You can take color pictures with it, or 120 film that's comparable. Has single lens, rotary shutter, sliding adjustable aperture. That's kind of cool. Shutter speed is 1/30th of a second. Slide bar time setting that closed the shutter when the shutter lever was released. Focal range is 2 meters to infinity. This is a still camera, but we could probably very easily get film for it. But 1937, 1940.
Holy shit! Yeah, that sounds about right. That means
your camera's as old as Al Pacino.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad we did this, because I have had these for a little while now, but I wasn't really sure exactly what they were.
Dude, they're cool as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that all of these accoutrements we're talking about need to be broken out, and something creative needs to be done with them.
Yeah. I'm in.
Especially if it involves hoaxing a Bigfoot film.
I'm completely into this idea. I fell down a cryptid hole.
I was going to say, you're speaking Dan's language right now.
Well, I kind of like fell in and out of it, because like when we first went into quarantine, I was like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of like real world conspiracies and monsters. I need to go into the fantasy worlds of conspiracies and monsters. And I got like real hard into it for a while. And I would love to hoax a cryptid film, because I'm equipped to do that. But I pulled back out of it. Mostly because I didn't enjoy reading the Mothman prophecies as much as I had hoped I would. But I want to make some smokes.
As somebody who loves cryptids, since I was are you able to edit this moment out?
Yeah.
Or are we live? No, you're good. Or you can just leave this in. I don't give a shit. My kid's out in the hallway, and I swear to God, it sounded like he had in the house. And then I realized, acoustics.
Like, Dad's
and all
recording.
That
We're having a party.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's talking about fucking monsters and shit again.
Like,
but no. I've been a fanatic about cryptids since I was a little kid, and a big part of that is that I grew up believing in Nessie and Bigfoot and the Mothman and all of these things. Hardcore, I believed in this stuff. And as somebody who...
I was raised in Jersey Devil territory.
Jersey Devil, yeah, there you go.
That was very big for me growing up.
And you know, as somebody who grew up without religion, it sort of was my religion to a degree, because in both cases, it requires a very specific belief system.
It's a mythology.
I mean, anything that somebody tries to tell you, you know, they're just trying to pull your eyes away from the truth that you know, and you have to have that faith that someday it is going to pay off and it is going to be real, despite there being no tangible evidence, and you having to learn to sort of ignore science.
Mothman doesn't leave tangible evidence. It's just not his MO.
Now, that's the thing, though, that's really interesting is that you went with John Keel. John Keel was on the much crazier end of the spectrum. And when you're talking about conspiracy theories and monsters, you're going, very far down the rainbow towards the leprechauns. That's where it starts getting really crazy. And people who, take their cryptozoology very seriously, and they're like, yes, I believe in Bigfoot because the science supports it. That crazy shit about Bigfoot being an interdimensional being, that's too crazy for me, and I stay away from it. So for somebody who doesn't have strong cryptid beliefs to try to go into that sort of madness and comprehend it,
it was a little nuts,
man. That's a little much even for me.
I wouldn't say it scared me away. It was more like, I think I went into it because I listened to like a couple really great podcasts about the lore of Mothman and some specifically about Keel's story. And it was more just the writing and structure of that book that got me than anything. Because I was like, oh, he's just going to go case by case, instance by instance. But it's not. It is the ramblings of someone who is in it and believes it, feels it. And I love that because it feels genuine to his experience. Almost in the way like when you read, and I will never compare the levels of prose here, but like when you read, what's his name? Oh, why can't I think of Color Out of Space guy?
H.P. Lovecraft.
When you read Lovecraft, it's like, man, it feels like it's written by like a witness to something real, It always and so this sort of had that. I'm like, I think this guy believes this, but it was just weaving in and out of any sort of narrative structure. And I don't know, I just ran out of patience with reading it and kind of just rocketed to the end without, eating my delicious fiction because I just needed to get through it.
If you ever feel like going down my favorite rabbit hole into madness, totally. There was a Loch Ness researcher named F.W. Holliday. And if you were here right now, directly to my right is a bookcase covered with like long out of print books about Nessie and Bigfoot and all of these monsters. Very well loved and read many times. And 3 of the books I'm looking at right now are by F.W. Holliday. And in his first book, he was writing about the Loch Ness Monster as everything sort of stood in 1965, and with research and with, what evidence had been accumulated. And he was very much Nessie is a big giant creature that lives in this lake. In his second book, The Dragon and the Disc, something happened to him in the next couple of years because suddenly Holliday is saying, and by using a considerable amount of anthropology of all the British Isles, he starts coming up with the notion that lake monsters are not flesh and blood creatures. They are actually the ghosts of creatures that once walked or swam in the earth and in the oceans, and that they are demonic in origin. And that is why we cannot find a dead Loch Ness monster. This is why we cannot, the monster has psychic powers, so that oftentimes you'll be ready to take a picture and the camera will malfunction. Or somebody happens to be there with a camera and the minute they walk away, there's a Nessie sighting.
Everything's covered.
They're essentially trolling human beings and trying to lure them into searching for that which they cannot find, leading them into madness and despair. Conversely, UFOs and everything that was happening with UFOs in the 1970s, they are the literal chariots of the gods, specifically the Christian God. And so the UFOs are coming down to try to keep the lake monsters at bay. And by the time we get to the third book, The Goblin Universe, he begins to talk about this side pocket, this interdimensional place from which all these monsters spring. And they're peeking through windows in the world that open at very specific places, like, for example, this particular body of water, but also all the Bigfoot sightings in the Pacific Northwest. They're walking in and out of doors, and that's why no one can find them. And
Holliday... See, your tone, though, you're saying this like this is crazy talk. And it sounds a lot to me like it explains everything.
It would Perhaps F.W. Holiday would be able to help lead us further down the rabbit hole. However,
the interdimensional rabbit hole.
As is described in the very lengthy paper that opens the Goblin universe, F.W. Holiday was not only dead by the time that third book appeared, but he died.
It's called the Goblin universe?
The Goblin universe.
Wow, I love it.
He died as a result of effects from a heart attack that killed him in a Man in Black experience that took place immediately after Holiday had a Catholic priest do an exorcism of Loch Ness that was broadcast on the BBC. And so Holiday was marked by a Man in Black. He ends up, there were UFOs at Loch Ness, and then Holiday had this heart attack because he stepped on this cursed spot. It's all this crazy shit. And I suggest, if you ever make a trip on eBay, look for these long out-of-print gems because they're incredible, and future generations will know none of these awesome things ever happened.
That's so cool. Now, actually, the Men in Black stories were actually my favorite part of Mothman, because Mothman Prophecies tries to tie in that idea that Mothman is dipping in from another reality, another parallel, alternate, whatever dimension you want to call it, and, you know, dips in to warn us about things. But that also Men in Black, they are like agents of whatever universe this is to just sort of clean up any of these rifts that happen. And that's why you can't find Men in Black. It's not the neuralizers. It's that there's other realms that they come from. Now, what do these people who have... this is going to sound so dismissive, but I'll say it. What are these people that love this Nessie coming from another universe, demonic kind of stuff? What do they have to say about the guy who took the Nessie pictures that when he was dying was like, that was a toy, I took pictures?
I mean, the whole idea is that the very easy explanation for the fact that just about every Loch Ness photograph or video or motion picture has been discredited with realistic, with actual evidence, something that we can say, look at this thing. Somebody confessed to this, or, you can tell it was superimposed or whatever. And those that have not yet been formally discredited may as well be. Nonetheless, those who would believe in a paranormal Nessie would argue that the photographs don't matter, because even if people are faking it, these creatures are still being seen. How do you account for the thousands of people over decades who are seeing the same thing? Of course, never mind the concepts of like expected attention and, geographical, anomalies that lead to, the whole legend and, folklore around the place creates this, psychological game that people are playing with themselves. I've been to Loch Ness. I've seen crazy shit on that water. I have explanations for everything I've seen there, and they don't involve dinosaurs. But,
that's still cool.
It is, and if you pay attention to the news right now, as we speak, there is all this hubbub being made of the fact that there were sonar readings taken at Loch Ness over the course of this October that picked up a very sizable anomaly under the water that is being interpreted many ways, one of which being one solid object. And there's nothing big enough in Loch Ness to be of this particular size. Of course, this is also coming a year after there was the big eDNA test where, it was pretty much decided there's nothing in this water by checking the environmental DNA, except maybe people are seeing eels. So
or Nessie has different DNA.
Or maybe Nessie just popped in out of this wormhole from the Goblin universe as the sonar was being taken.
Right.
And that's exactly why we can't find Nessie, because Satan is here to make us doubt ourselves and to lose our minds trying to prove something that everyone else says can't possibly exist. You're fucking crazy. And Satan is doing this on purpose. So he sends his Nessies, he sends his Pazuzus and everyone out to screw with our heads.
I feel like that sounds like just fun. I'm into it. Keep sending them. Keep sending your Nessies and Pazuzus, Satan. This is a blast. I'm going to operate from the theory that I don't think there was a Nessie, but because of renewed interest, the collective mental energy of everybody believing in Nessie has caused it to occasionally manifest.
Yeah,
that's the angle I'm going to take.
And you're absolutely right. And, a lot of people forget or just don't know that when those early 20th century sightings were happening, this was 1933, and there was a road that went along the north shore of Loch Ness, which, has these very, very steep cliff drops into the water. But along the shore, you've got these really tall trees. And in the early 30s, that road was completely refurbed. And in the process of dynamiting and, taking out portions of the rock and whatnot to repave this road and improve it, they had all sorts of shit that was being dumped into the lake, including all the trees that they were cutting down. So when people start saying they're seeing monsters, everybody else starts coming to Loch Ness going, oh, maybe I'll see that monster too. And then you've got all of these things that are happening out there with, downed trees and floating barrels and all this crap that's a, result of road work. And just one feeds the other, I
love it. It's so fun. I think that's what's so fun about cryptids is that, it's the X-Files adage. Like, I want to believe, and it's fun to want to believe, and it's just neat to think that there's some extracurricular magic to it all, and that magic involves ghouls and goblins and monsters. I love it. Ooh, I'm into it.
Eric, didn't you send Gavin York, do I have his name correct, to a team of, or a group of cryptid believers or defenders in Butterfly Kisses?
I did, and again, I'm showing my hand because I love this shit, and Butterfly Kisses is, it's a love letter to the paranormal and urban legends and conspiracy theories and all that stuff, and that was really fun and. Something that was very interesting to learn as I go to have my protagonist try to go and present his, potential supernatural footage to a group of, paranormal investigators. I wanted real paranormal investigators. And I talked to numerous groups who just turned me down because they were afraid I was going to make fun of them, that I was going to make them look bad.
And they're the reasonable ones in Butterfly Kisses, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
exactly. They're like, I don't see it.
Yeah. Gavin is the foolish one in every scene.
Have either of you ever seen Incident at Loch Ness?
Yes.
I've not.
I like that movie a lot. It's sort of found footagey, but it stars Werner Herzog. So it's like very much my flavor, but it is like a cryptid found footage movie. Very meta, very clever, like expressly a comedy at points, but also pretty intense. And it's just like a neat novelty movie. With Werner Herzog at its center.
It's a very, very cool, fun film. Having been there, it was cool. Just watching things like, the crew of Herzog's fictional documentary hanging out in a hotel where I used to hang out in the pub over there and have drinks. So it's just those little things are very, very extra fun for me because they capture a lot of the sort of, the real people, the real places, real Nessie investigators while doing this, sort of fake documentary. It's very cool. I think that's a great fun and little recognized movie.
I stumbled across it and was like, Werner Herzog. And it's very silly. And this isn't a line, but like you do have opportunities for him to just be like, saying things like, and Nessie swims belly to the bottom of the lake. But does she hope? Does she dream? Like it's just like dumb shit like that. It's so good.
I'm super impressed, by the way. Your Werner Herzog is very, very good.
Back in my stand-up days, I used to do a whole bit about my love for Grizzly Man because it's narrator versus subject as opposed to in tandem with one another. And I don't know any documentary that does that. And that bit did a lot of me conversing between Herzog and Treadwell. So yeah, my Herzog's been around the block.
Nice.
But I mean, really, if you just do like scratchy voiced German man, that's just kind of it,
All right, let's talk sequels, my friends. I'm excited to do this because I watched a couple of movies today just so that we could have some good conversation. I'm excited to chat about it.
Were any of the sequels that you watched, could any of them be considered squeakquels?
No squeakquels.
Okay, just making sure.
No squeakquels. Not that I'm aware. I mean, you can tell me. Maybe you'll be like, that's a squeakquel, dude. You fucked up. That's a goddamn squeakquel.
No, squeakquel is just what they called the Alvin and the Chipmunk sequels. Yeah. And when I used to work at a law firm, there was this one lawyer there who like really wanted to be cool and probably was cool back in the day, but he was like older and you know, just very like into his kids and stuff. And so whenever we would like exchange our docs, he would like try to eschew that and be like cool. But his life only existed through that. And I remember he was like, you know, movie's actually real good if you like movies. The second Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, it's a sequel. Well, technically it's a squeakquel. And he said it with all earnestness. And I was just like, I love this guy because it's clear that like his family is number one, but he's like trying to be cool to me through the squeakquel. And that phrase is in my head forever.
Very funny. Is it because he knew that you were a cinema nerd and you would call him out, or at least mentally call him out, is like, oh, fucking dude tried to make an Alvin and the Chipmunks reference and he fucked it up and got the wrong movie.
Well, he was just trying to like bond as we were going over documents, and he knew I was a movie guy. And so I immediately was going to judge him just like, you're talking to me about the squeakquel, sir. I get it. Like you have young children and you don't always get to watch what you want to watch. So this is your movie and this is how you connect with me. But like there's no world right now where I'm going to see the squeakquel. But out in the open, it occurred to me like, no, this guy's trying to talk movies, and he found something of value in this movie that he watched with his kids. And I was like, that's awesome. You know, that's cool.
Now, have either of you guys seen the Alvin and the Chipmunks animated movie from the 1980s?
I think so.
In which gone in and removed pitch modulation from the chipmunk characters. So now they have adult human voices.
What?
And it's deeply upsetting. It's a very troubling experience. I suggest you find it on YouTube. It's pretty amazing.
I will.
That's insane. I feel like the Chipmunks were built around somebody just speeding up their record player and being like, they sound like chipmunks. And then the idea was built off of that. So to remove that, to me, feels like the core idea being removed from the Chipmunks entirely.
Yeah, but now you have bipedal anthropomorphic chipmunks who are speaking with adult human voices.
Yo, I want that. It's cool as hell.
It's very good. So, at any rate.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Squeakquels.
Squeakquels.
Yes. Look,
I hope that guy's not listening to my podcast. He'd be like, that motherfucker, I thought we were bonding over squeakquels, and he just threw me under the bus.
Yeah.
So, old lawyer friend, I'm sorry. But you're in your 60s, man. It's a different world.
So where do we want to start here? Like I watched a movie that you recommended, Eric, that boy did I enjoy it. I'm excited to talk about. But then I brought a movie of my own. I know you kind of had another idea too, and Dan, I don't even know what you've brought to the table. So
I just made a list of sequels that I like, and I was just gonna rattle through them and defend them as best I can. But I do have one that I'll never defend successfully, but I'll try.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, Eric. I woke up this morning and at 6 a.m. I watched The Exorcist II: The Heretic. Right? That's what's called the Heretic.
Heretic.
Yeah, Heretic.
Heretic.
Boy, did I love that movie. Boy,
right on.
I loved the shit out of that movie.
Okay, so first of all, the important question: did you watch the original movie to lead you in, or did you just go like cold straight into The Heretic?
Cold straight into The Heretic. I mean, I've seen The Exorcist before, but I did not watch it on the heels of the original The Exorcist. No.
Then the experience was probably less jarring for you than it is for a lot of people who sort of go, "Oh man, The Exorcist, this is great. Shit, there's an Exorcist too? Well, let's put that on. What the fuck am I looking at?" And it's a weird. It's very different.
Yes.
From The Exorcist.
Yes,
did
it
you
is.
like it ironically, or did
No.
you really like it?
No, I actually liked it. Like, I watched it with my partner Tori this morning, and we I think about like halfway through the movie, we paused it because we had to get up to get like breakfast or something or whatever, and we both just kind of turned to each other, and I was like, "This is like pretty incredible," and she was like, "Yeah, I pretty much love everything about this." Like, it just is such a weird. It feels like one of those movies where like, just on a sequence by sequence basis, it's constantly entertaining and interesting. It's like it's always unfolding, and it's got like all of a sudden we're in dreams that have these insane sets that have these like really big production values, and then we come back to like the Nurse Ratched character who clearly was cast because she was Nurse Ratched at some point, and like that's supposed to play into how we feel about it. It was like everything about it, I was like, these are such weird, interesting decisions, and I kind of love the idea of them going like, if we're making a sequel to this movie, now we have to create mythology. It's no longer just like a sort of loose like Christian canon. Now it has to have like a specific mythology. And so they just like set out at doing this like really crazy big swing that I was like all in the whole time. And I really love movies that are trying to go like, hey, science, religion, maybe maybe
the
not.
Little like dream-inducing machine.
Yeah.
Because that's a movie that it's been a while since I've seen it. I remember watching it and being like, yeah, but as I understand it, like it has like a cult love to it, and people are starting to really come around on it the same way that a lot of people did with the third one. But the one thing I remember loving was the Little dream inducement machine, because that is like my favorite mix of spiritual science, is that kind of stuff, and just like the concept of like that's what futuristic tech looked like. It had light bulbs and gears, and it's almost steampunky to a degree.
Yeah,
I think there's something to be said that John Boorman is a very irreverent sort of director. Like, he's very passionate about whatever his subject matter is, but he's not afraid to push the limits of whatever that subject is, even if it feels safer or more comfortable to stay, in the mid lane or something. You see movies like, people forget that Deliverance was not very long before this film, and that the on-camera rape scene of Ned Beatty was, almost as extreme as anything we see in The Exorcist. It
I know
definitely
that
was shocking.
affected Ned Beatty's career. He had a difficult time being seen as anything but that character because people associated with it so hard, even on the level of like casting.
Yeah, I mean, you'd seen
so
sex
shocking.
dealt with. Sex was dealt with in Midnight Cowboy in a way that I don't think that we tended to see very often. But Deliverance showed rape, and it showed male rape. And, Ned Beatty, as you said, I mean, he was emasculated in a way that, a lot of people probably in 1972 didn't even think about that happening.
Yeah.
Men being sexually assaulted. And so to see that, in the theater, in the drive-in, whatever, that was a really horrific and shocking thing. So it makes it makes total sense that Boorman was offered the original Exorcist, and he turned it down. He didn't want to do it because he thought that it was too nasty. It was too mean-spirited. It was just about, audiences going and spending 2 hours watching a child being tortured, essentially. And he did Exorcist II because the first one came out. It was one of the original blockbusters, and Boorman had done Zardoz.
Right.
And Zardoz did not go over well. But that's another movie where he wasn't comfortable swimming in the middle. Yeah. He went to, an extreme. And so now him trying to, he'd been trying to get the Lord of the Rings made. That wasn't working out. So now he was trying to get Excalibur made in its stead, and he'd lost a lot of support and confidence after Zardoz. So he takes Exorcist II. But he says, if I'm going to do an Exorcist II, it has to be my Exorcist II. And again, he swims all the way in one direction, and it is not what people were expecting.
Yeah. I loved it. Like, I thought the filmmaking was stellar. Like, genuinely.
Yes.
I love I like looked up some reviews and I saw some people digging on it for some stuff, but like I love the locust shit, like where with the hyper focus on the locust flying through the air and stuff, and the way that relates to what they sort of describe Pazuzu to be over the course of the movie. And then I really the finale is stellar. The finale is like, you know, it feels like Poltergeist is heavily influenced by this movie. It feels like I honestly, the way I wrote about it in my Letterboxd review was I said if Fulci had directed this movie, nobody would shut up about it. If Fulci was the name that was on this movie, everybody would talk about it. But it's not, and so for some, you know, and so it gets kind of like crapped on as like a bad Exorcist sequel. But it's like it straight up is basically a Fulci movie. It's even got an Ennio Morricone, like a really weird kind of like almost, you know, what do you call that when a score is like anti to like what you're actually watching? It's like
it's antithetical,
incongruent.
Yes, it has kind of an incongruent score that feels very much like the Italian schlock, like horror movies of the time.
Oh yeah.
It's
well,
like,
and it's very weird like that, you know, because it's like it has all these strange pseudo African themes and the sound of a woman shrieking.
Yes.
But then Reagan's theme is this, which if you haven't seen the movie, you heard the music in The Hateful Eight.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's this lovely theme. It's a very Irish sounding theme, and also at the same time sounds like something you'd see in a, you know, when we were all probably in 7th grade watching, you know, the girls and the boys were separated for sex ed, and the girls went to go watch this old 16 millimeter film strip, and it was like, your changing body, and it's talking about menstruation and stuff, and this theme sounds like it ought to be playing. But yeah, it's such a fucking weird movie, like you're saying, because it's like Borman wants to put his stamp on it. Okay, cool. This is a guy who does either hyper visual, or he does something like Deliverance, which again, you watch Deliverance and it makes sense why he was offered The Exorcist. That is a naturalistic film in every way possible. Exorcist II is like an Argento film.
Yes.
And it's absolutely crazy and operatic.
Yes.
And it's got these crazy in-camera special effects that are amazing. Like you know, you see these ghost glass effects with images that are layered on top of one another, all done with mirrors and no optical printing. It's absolutely crazy. They couldn't film in Georgetown, so they built the entire Prospect Street and the house and the steps on a set, and then had a locust swarm destroy it. It's like, yes,
man, I don't remember any of this. I really got to rewatch this.
Oh my god, it's insane. And
I have the DVD.
I think you might like it if you revisit it. It's pretty
it sounds
wild.
Really cool.
It's this perfect storm of weirdness because you could not make this movie on purpose.
Right.
It's like the Room. You could not have made The Room on purpose. And Exorcist II is the same way. Borman, his objectives were so lofty and so high, and he was shooting for art with a capital A, and he made this bizarre, lumbering beast that is not what he intended to create, but is its own, you know, final form nonetheless. It's this incredible thing where the entire movie becomes about dreams and what is reality, and things that seem weird don't seem funny if you're not taking them as literal, but saying it's all part. How much telepathy are we in throughout this movie? Minds are touching, things aren't real. Even the house that I'm talking about in the steps, which is not photo perfect to the real place, nonetheless looks like a heightened level of reality because they're all in a trance when they're there anyway. It's incredible. And that, you know, whether the synchronizer machine is bullshit, whether this movie jettisons, you know, Catholic iconography to become this weird Uri Geller inspired 1970s New Age mishmash, whatever it is, it is still an amazing film. It's an amazing film that can be enjoyed unironically.
Totally.
Sold.
Totally.
I'm ready to watch it again. Totally I don't remember that much because of course you remember the first movie, and then the third one, which I'm not as over the moon for as like I know the resurgence of it is, but it's like there's a lot of great in that movie, which is decent. It has the best jump scare I've ever seen. It's the most elegant jump scare I've ever seen because it's barely even a jump scare. But if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. You're probably familiar with it either way.
Yeah.
So 2 kind of gets lost in the middle of these 2 bigger pieces of iconography, but you have me sold. I would like to revisit it for sure.
I definitely recommend it.
I enjoyed it in the same way I enjoyed a movie we don't need to talk about because I talk about it all the time and love it, but like Psycho 2, where it's like this sequel doesn't need to be or have any right to be as good as it is. It's like actually good, and it's a weird, strange take on this material, but it's good. It's like a good movie. Like,
I gotta say, I think I like Psycho 2 the best out of all the Psychos.
Listen, The Exorcist is a great movie, but much like Psycho 2, if you're asking me what movie I want to sit down and watch right now, the answer I think might be The Exorcist 2.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, Psycho 2 is, you and I bonded, all three of us bonded over that love early on, but I feel there are a lot of sort of criminally underappreciated number 2 films that people go, oh, that didn't fit into what the rest of them were, and you're like, well, it can't really, because 3 is always going to be a reaction to 2. Right. 2 is always trying to do something different or copy part 1. Right. So you got movies like, whether that's Psycho 2 or that's Exorcist 2 or that's Omen 2 or Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Right.
All these sequels that people just, give the stink eye. And if you actually sit down and just try to say, forget what came after, just look at what came before.
Mm-hmm.
They're easier to appreciate in isolation. Of course, in a day of like apps and streaming and instant access to movies, people have forgotten the time jumps between films and what's happening culturally and with other films at the time.
That helps me sometimes, I think. Like, I think that's a reason that a Psycho 2 and an Exorcist 2 work so well for me is I'm watching them devoid of really any context other than the first movie. I'm not coming to them with the pressure of time where, oh, it's been 6 years since that Exorcist movie came out, and I can't believe they made a sequel. And do you know what I'm saying? It's like I have none of that. I'm just watching it as just, oh, they made a sequel to this? That's crazy, And then it's like, if it's crazy or it's weird, it's like it's just kind of fun that it's crazy or weird. It's not the disappointment of like, man, I can't believe they did this.
Because you don't get the sense like, oh, they dropped the ball.
Because they did it. It's already here. It exists. It's been existing for the last 30 years. Like And
I think too, as our culture is what it is, the more hard coded into my being the concept of the original's still there. The more that just gels into me, the more I could give a shit about whether a sequel is true or not. Just make it good.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, but it ruins the original. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You're a human being. You can actually ignore that second one if you want. You have the power, I promise you. And but at the same time, it's like, no, I like those bonkers sequels because like if I wanted more of the first one, I'd just watch the first one again.
Yeah. Well, that's the movie I'm going to bring to the table is like kind of an interesting example of this because it's both a number 2. It is a sequel to a specific movie, but it's also like number 7 in like a big franchise. Alien Covenant is what I wanted to like talk about.
Oh, nice.
And I know you like this movie as well. I don't know how you feel about this one, Eric, but I just rewatched it today to make sure I still like. And I really like this movie. And it's like a direct sequel to Prometheus, so it is like a number 2, but it's really like, whatever, like the sixth Alien, sixth. I guess AVP also counts. So like 8th.
Like there's 2.
It would be the 8th if we count the AVPs, because you got 3 Aliens, Resurrection, AVP 1, AVP 2, Prometheus, Covenant. So
so 8. It's like right, but I think that this is like because it's like the 8th in a franchise. It kind of got almost immediately lost. Like people just didn't really care about it that much, like in general, And to me,
they were like, I hope in this Alien they go to space.
Right. To me, this is like, and I maybe have controversial opinions about some of the entries in this anyway, but this might be like the 2nd or 3rd best Alien movie that they've made. Like I really, really like this movie, and I think if I'm looking at it as a franchise, it's like up there as one of the best ones. And that's partially because of the David Walter shit, which really has nothing to do with the franchise at large, but kind of has everything to do with where Ridley
Same
Scott
thematic concerns
these,
that they introduced with Prometheus. Yeah.
Right. But that's the other thing is like as a sequel to Prometheus, it also kind of cleans up a bit of Prometheus and makes that movie even better in retrospect, I think, which is a cool thing this movie does. But it also functions very well as its own Alien combined with Prometheus movie. You know, it kind of does both fairly well. And then I also think Ridley Scott gets to like play with a lot of people complain about the shower scene, and I kind of love the shower scene.
That's the one thing I like can picture perfectly in my head still.
I feel like that's him being like looking at the history of horror movies, which because he made the original Alien, he's very much and kind of circling back around and being like, oh, I can probably add in some of that stuff that like once Hitchcock put it in a movie, everybody put it in a movie. Like I could put it in one of mine too, and I can do it in an effective, interesting, my own kind of way.
I can remind you all where it came from. Yeah.
Like, and this is even like this is his Frankenstein movie too. It's like a fucked up Frankenstein movie that has like all of this whole, you know, the whole, and also again we were just talking about with Exorcist II, the movies about faith or science. This is like history, mythology, faith, science. He's like trying to wrap all of that into like one big story, and I kind of like that.
I like the idea because in Prometheus they introduced the idea that these creators, I forget what they're called, you know, they react to us with ire when they see what they've created, and they kind of see a reflection of themselves, and they see it as a failure or whatever it is, however you want to read it. That's why I think the David and whatever the other one's name stuff is so important, because David cannot understand this idea of seeing yourself in someone else to the point where like he cuts his hair to match the movie because he's like trying to relate to that idea. And then in Covenant, it's like, oh no, there's another one of you. And you either are or aren't going to get along depending on the moment. But I think that's a really fun way of expanding upon the character that was like the runaway cool character from the first movie, as well as just introducing, you know, all this weird what does it all mean shit that Ridley Scott's been exploring now that he's 100.
Yeah, agreed. And I also, Dan, I don't know if you remember this because it is very predictable, but like the final moments of the movie are genuinely really fucking chilling. It's like really, really good horror movie making.
And it's super intense.
That's what's happening, but the way in which it happens is just so cold and chilling. And like, it's like, we
talked about this on the classic show last week. That's one of those endings that is really good at juggling like 4 or 5 urgent situations simultaneously and checking in right at the right time so that pace is just, oh man, you're never going to have to fight me on this. I'm a big Prometheus Covenant fan.
Eric, where do you stand on these movies?
I feel like Prometheus was a movie that came out and people thought it was going to be one thing and then it wasn't, and it really pissed them off. I mean, not everybody. That film definitely has its fandom, but
I love that one too. I'm a big fan of that movie.
But it's not the across the board, you know, the slam dunk that everybody was hoping for, that everybody wanted, and it feels a lot like Ridley Scott with Alien Covenant is sort of Rise of Skywalkering things a little bit. It feels like a very intentional course correction and sort of giving people what they thought they were going to get with Prometheus and were then pissed off that they didn't get. Except now with 100% more James Franco appearing at the beginning, which was a weird cameo for me when I saw that. I was like,
he bursts alive before he even speaks a line.
Well, in that short prequel film that they did to it, that like 10-minute film, he has more to do, which is probably why they had him.
Okay, I see. I never saw that. I went to a press screening of Covenant, and I was sitting there at the beginning of the movie. I just watched Prometheus again to get myself back up to speed, and I was like, holy shit, is that James Franco? And I got so pulled out of the movie trying to sit there and figure out if it was that I kind of missed like the opening of the film. But no,
and then he got pulled out of the movie.
I don't have a problem with Covenant. I don't dislike it. I just feel like it's a little. I mean, wasn't the Prometheus story going to be a trilogy or like 4 films or something? And then it just kind of felt like it was like, okay, well, here's everything in one sequel that tidies everything up more or less. And it's like, you know, here's a lot of sort of traditional Alien iconography in it. It felt a little like, Well, if you're gonna make a Phantom Menace, then don't bring Boba Fett into the next one. Lean into that weird course that you're taking that is not what we were expecting. It just
So
felt
I would agree that it
easy.
does feel like a course correction, in that sense. Judgment on the term correction being the issue, but I think that it does all of that stuff quite well.
Yeah.
And but I'm also
too.
such a sucker for the imagery of Aliens that just seeing it now, all shiny, new, and with Ridley Scott behind it, the movie could have been garbage, and I would have been sitting there drooling over the alien stuff. So I guess it's not as precious to me to maintain the Prometheus storyline, which I think they did for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would agree. It does feel like, at least knowing what I know, that he was trying to get some alien stuff in there to please people. But I just think it's done so well, really as well as it could be done.
3 years later, on a rewatch, without the pressure of the new latest grit, whatever, just like we were talking about, a lot of the stuff you guys are talking about, it's like I remember having some of those similar concerns. Were not as concerning. Like, it feels like a more cohesive movie than I remember it feeling. The characters I kind of was able to detach from, like, that's Danny McBride playing that guy, and was able to actually let him just be that guy and enjoy his performance as that guy. Like, it felt a little more complete on a rewatch without like all that pressure on it, and kind of did jump, in my opinion, a little bit of like, oh, this is just good, effective, like fun alien movie with very interesting like mythological stuff kind of being like incorporated into it, which is clearly where Ridley Scott is like more concerned now anyway.
I gotta watch that Raised by Wolves.
Yeah, me too.
Once I get through this film fest, I'm gonna prioritize that.
Dan, what are you bringing to the table, my friend?
All right, so I think I've decided what I wanted to land on. So so I was going to say that these are the things that I was dealing with. I had Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Terminator 3, Pet Sematary 2, Die Hard 4, both Halloween 2s, Wreck 2, but I've decided that I'm going to defend Rocky 5.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you guys probably aren't so into Rocky that you have any issues with Rocky 5 for me to stand with my back against the wall and yell about.
I do, actually.
Yes.
I enjoy this series very, very much. I love this series, in fact. And I am in that very small minority of people who say, fuck Rocky 4. I love Rocky 5.
Okay, so we're on the same page. Because
you guys are about to light each other's worlds on fire.
Don't get me wrong. I like Rocky for what it is. Sure. But people always act like that's the best one.
No, it's not.
It's barely a movie. It's 3 montages. It's very antithetical to the character of Rocky. Rocky would not go on a vengeance mission. It's just not in his thing. I'm not going to say that Apollo deserved what he got, but I would say that he was asking for it. And anything that the Russians do in that movie doesn't really come across as dickheaded. It usually comes across at worst as like a poor translation. And the one thing that they do to try and make Rocky into the bad guy is during the dueling training montage, they just show a needle going into Ivan Drago's buttock. So it just suggests that he's cheating. Otherwise, like, all he does is show up, say, I kind of want to join your sport. And the Americans are like, oh, you want to join your sport? We better step up and be cool like Americans. Fucking Russian, risky dick. Like, they're all assholes. And I don't know. The Russians are supposed to be villainous in that, and they're not. The Americans are assholes, and the Russians are polite. And then at the end, he fights so hard that they decide that they like Rocky. It was the whole thing.
Yeah,
stretch.
The fact
it's a lot of fun, but
the fact that Rocky wins a fist fight, and then starts in barely intelligible English, telling the Soviet Union why the United States of America is the greatest in the world.
I still know how to change it tonight.
And then all of the spectators stand to give him an ovation.
Yeah.
It is the most jingoistic, offensive in the sense that, like, we are constantly, this is the part where you can walk away from this particular podcast if I'm going to hurt your feelings. But The way that we as a nation tend to just go stick our dicks into situations that we don't need to have our dicks in. Just we need to mind our own fucking business sometimes and not fight other people's wars or, intrude on countries that didn't actually attack us, so there's something so offensive about the end of Rocky IV, and that you've got the people of Walmart being like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's just so incredibly stupid. And Polly has a fucking robot. What's
the robot thing? The inclusion of the robot isn't what bothers me. It's the fact that it is very expressly suggested that Polly fucks this robot, so much so that it gained sentience and changed its own internal programming of its own accord to sound more like a woman that's attracted to Polly. But even that I can live with, because apparently that robot was something that Stallone's kid really loved. It was like a therapy sort of thing. And so he put it in the movie, as a shout out to his kid. I respect that. But his pretend kid gets left at home alone, care of said robot, on Christmas, while the entire family fights a vengeance mission in Russia.
Which is why everything you just said, which is why Rocky V is a wonderful palette, because we return to the Rocky Balboa of Rocky 1 and 2. This kind of stupid, simple, street rat who's done some kind of shitty things working as an enforcer, a leg breaker, because he's too dumb to know what else to do. And, his girlfriend...
I've got to pay my bills. It's a good couch.
That's also an impression. But, his girlfriend is...
doing that my whole life.
His girlfriend at the time is being called a retard by her own brother, who's just this abusive piece of shit, and then all of a sudden in Rocky III, Stallone gets a haircut, starts speaking like a man of good reading.
Yeah.
And, you
got a real big mouth.
Adrian starts, getting kind of glamorous for all, Talia Shire was capable of being glamorous. And it starts turning more into a Saturday morning cartoon. Yeah. Rocky V, we go back to, these, we want no money. And they're living, in a bad district, and kids got to go to public school now. And he's pissed off at his dad. And it just feels like we went from Rocky 1 to 2 to 5.
Yeah, it's the Halloween H2O of the. No, it's what I like about Rocky V so much though is that there's only so far you have guy loses but proves he's good enough. Guy wins. Then guy needs to prove that his wins are legit. And then fourth one, guy ends the Cold War. Okay. So then the fifth one then becomes, by bringing it back to this original Rocky archetype, where do you go with wins, loses, or anything like that? The answer is you don't. I like that the idea is he doesn't really have a father in his life. So he has no model through which he can be a father to Rocky Jr. He did have Mickey. So he starts emulating Mickey and being that trainer father figure to Tommy Gunn and ignoring his own son in the process. So I think that's such a compelling way to do it. Now, it's kind of done hamily and all that, but it's very compelling. And then to put that next to his son is getting beat up at school and actually needs to learn how to put up some dukes. And so all of the pieces are there for Rocky to succeed and become, the father that he can and should be. And the movie, I think, does a really wonderful job of doing that with his career in the rear view. When it comes to real world commentary, where he has what's his name, a Don King surrogate in the movie, that's kind of dumb. That weird boxing commentary is dumb. But I think the family stuff works, and I think the class stuff works. My only beef with the movie, I think, would make the movie damn near perfect, is if he refused to fight Tommy Gunn at the end. I know that the rules dictate you need to have a fight at the end of a Rocky movie, but where that movie's thematics were leading up to, Rocky should have been I don't need to prove anything to fight you. I got the kid, I got my wife. I would so much prefer that. But
it is really interesting that you say that, because Rocky if Rocky V is about Rocky Balboa no longer being the heavyweight champion of the world, no longer being a celebrity boxer, but instead now he's kind of down on his luck again, and he is, as you said, in the Mickey role, and he is training Tommy Gunn, then what I do love about the fight is it's the only fight that is not taking place in a boxing ring. It's a street fight. We have truly brought Rocky Balboa back to where he was when we first met him. It's a brawl in the streets. Mm-hmm. Of course, being a Rocky movie, they got to have all these cars and a whole crowd, and it might as well be in an arena. But it is a street fight. I agree with you, though. If you really wanted to bring this around full circle, the fact that Rocky wins, but it's a personal victory in the first movie. He doesn't technically win the fight. It is a personal victory. I think that would have been the classiest ending in the world, to go with what you said for 5. If he doesn't fight and everybody is just booing him or whatever, but his wife and his son love and respect him, and that's all he needs, then he has, again, gone the distance and he's won.
And that fixes probably the series' biggest problem, is that nobody listens to Adrian. Adrian is always so sidelined, and even to the point where she's like, no, Rocky, I don't want you fighting, Rocky, stop fighting. And he's just like, I heard you, but I got to do what I got to do. And like, that's all they ever do with it. And it's like, she's a person, like she's a whole person. That's something that I think the Creed movie really fixed by giving Tessa Thompson's character a full arc, and did that. But 5 could have reclaimed all of that if he's just like, you're right, Adrian, I don't need to fight to prove anything. The only fight I need to battle is life. With some stupid plan. It'd be awesome. But, it's a Rocky movie, so there's got to be a fight. But I think that everyone's like, fuck Rocky 5, I hate it. And the reasons that you're saying fuck Rocky 5 are actually the reasons why I think it's good.
Exactly.
So that's my defense.
Exactly. And the people that say fuck Rocky 5 are the people who love Rocky 4. And the people who love Rocky 5 are the people who loved Rocky 1 and 2. So it's definite, and 3 is the bridge between us all.
3 is the one where the formula is kind of just done perfectly. Like, they figured out the slots, they put them in, Thunder Lips, Clubber Lang, Pain. Perfect. 3 is probably like the easiest watch. It's the one that goes down. And you got the Mickey drama. We lose Mick in that one, so it's that one's a little get you in the.
But then we get Apollo and Rocky are no longer adversaries, you know, and Apollo becomes the new Mickey. Yeah, totally. If you were going to show somebody who had no frame of reference a Rocky movie, Rocky 3. If you were saying, I'm going to show you a movie that summarizes the series, Rocky 3 summarizes the series the same way you would show somebody Friday the 13th, the final chapter, to say, this is what Friday the 13th is,
Yes. So good, show up my shirt.
I love in fact, I've been looking at both of your shirts, which is my way. It's code for saying that I've been checking out your boobies. But no, you're both wearing fantastic shirts.
Thank you.
Rocky 3 is Rocky the action figure playset, the movie.
Yeah.
And so you can throw it. We did an episode on Rocky, and we showed our buddy Logan Rocky for the first time. And the ended, and we're all talking about it, and he was just dead quiet. And he goes, "Did you just fucking lose?" Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like, my whole life, I thought that movie was about winning.
No, it's the same way if you were going to show somebody who is, completely familiar with the Rambo iconography. If you showed them First Blood, they wouldn't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make any sense to them.
They'd be like, this is all good and shit. What is this?
That was my experience with it. I watched that for the first time for this show, like last year. And, it turns out I mostly know Rambo 2 as the iconography of Rambo. So I watched the first one, and I was like, oh, so this is a good movie. Nobody told me that.
This is real. You got to watch Last Blood, because it's like barely a movie. It's horrifyingly violent. Yeah. Stallone barely looks human anymore. And, to like shock and offend me, there's a thing that happens midway through that movie that my jaw hit the floor, and for the rest of the movie I was just sitting there going like, I can't believe, as he's like just like he cuts a dude's heart out of his chest, but even as he was like cutting a guy's heart out of his chest, I'm like, I can't believe that one other thing. You got to watch it. It's bonkers. He basically becomes Jason.
Yeah.
And, crazy face and everything. Last Blood is insane. I
need to get around and do a rewatch of that series because I have not seen that one. But I will say that, Dan, you mentioned you mentioned so many movies when whittling down to Rocky V that I want to talk about with you, including my plan B that I had in the event that you guys had not seen Exorcist II yet, that I very much want to discuss with you guys. So
what was do we have a minute? Can we drop? Is it Halloween 2 you wanted to talk about? That would be my
guess. Dude, if I were gonna you mean Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie one?
Well, my note says Halloween 2, both of them. Because I don't like the Rob Zombie remake, but the Rob Zombie sequel is like top tier Halloween to me.
Really?
Yeah, it's
really.
Someone recently described Zombies Halloween 2 as Halloween Firewalk with me, and I think that is spot on. And if you know me in Twin Peaks, that just put me into the right mood. But I love Hospital Halloween 2 as well, for what it's worth.
I will personally take the original Halloween 2 over H2, but I don't necessarily need either one. All I need is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Watched that for the first time this week. Good movie.
Wait, that was your first time?
Yeah, good movie. I think I saw it as a kid. I do have memories of that movie, but not distinct ones. Good movie. Dr. Dan. The action star is Dr. Dan.
I love how Tom Atkins just shows up and the girl's just like, I lost somebody really close to me. Anyway, let's get it on.
Every woman in that movie is like, hey, Tom Atkins, are you trying to fuck? And he's like, I mean, mostly.
He is either sexually harassing or being flirted with by every single woman in this film. It is amazing.
It's great. I enjoyed that movie a good deal. It was fun.
Wait, so what was the other stuff on my list here that you were saying?
I think what Eric is alluding to is Spider-Man 3, I believe, right?
Spider-Man 3 was going to be my other one besides Exorcist 2.
Well, let's talk about Spider-Man 3 for a minute, because this is another movie that I genuinely enjoy.
I mean, I have not seen this movie since I went to see it in the movie theater and was very disappointed by it at the time. Now I feel like I probably would find a lot to enjoy about it as a Sam Raimi. It would be that thing with Mission Impossible 2 where it's like, not a great Mission Impossible movie. John Woo movie.
It's a lot of fun.
Pretty fun John Woo movie. Not a great Mission Impossible.
So if you haven't watched Spider-Man 3 in a while, you should revisit it. And we should pick up this conversation.
I would love to.
I'm into that.
Come back and do another round of unheralded sequels and get some Spider-Man 3 in. I'm into it.
Before I lose the train of thought, Ryan said something very interesting about Spider-Man 3. He said, I didn't like it when it was one of 3 Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
But now that it's one of 7, 8 Spider-Man movies, it's pretty good. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Eric, thanks very much, man, for being here and joining us. And please come back so that we can do some Spider-Man 3 and some more sequels.
Gentlemen, you guys are always awesome, and I love you both. And thank you so much for the chance to just sit here and spend a Friday night shooting shit with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Love you too, man.
Tell people where they can find you on the internet and whether there's anything you're working on that they should know about.
You can find me, Erik Kristopher Myers. I'm an independent filmmaker, and my movies Roulette and Butterfly Kisses are streaming on Prime right now, or you can pick up the physical discs. I also write for Ain't It Cool News, typically on the topics of genre theory and franchise history. You can find me there as EKM. You can find me on all the social medias as EKMYERS. And make sure that when you are done with this particular program, that you go and you punch that 5-star button and you leave a review, because that is what helps all of us podcasters and filmmakers and writers alike. This is what moves the algorithms and allows new people to find all of the awesome things that we're working on and can really make a difference in your life during a dark, depressing pandemic.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
You can find our show everywhere online at I Like To Movie. That's numeric 2. You can find me everywhere at Philadelphia. That's with an F. And Cinema76.com.
At Dan Scully on all of the things. Cinema76.com. I'll be covering the Philadelphia Film Festival for Findy.com. Just dropped my Borat review. Definitely want to see that. Shit's wild. So yeah, definitely punch that like and subscribe button. Punch your 5 stars. Go punch a hole in a ballot. Pop that into a box. Get it all done. Do a lot of punching.
Let's close this thing up. My name is Garrett Smith, and I like to movie.
My name is Dan Scully, and I like to movie.
Hawk Bonataw.
We all know that you like to Hawk Bonataw because we like to Hawk Bonataw.